Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, whatever time it happens to be. If you are checking this out, if you are checking it live, then good afternoon, at least in the United States, East Coast. If you're watching this on replay, you won't be able to get tickets to my event, which is starting tomorrow. But you can still absorb the game that I'm going to share here on this live. So let me get my comment posted, and then we'll get into what we need to get into here today. Hope everybody's had a good start to your week. It's Wednesday, so we are almost at the halfway point of the week. Once we get to about the halfway point of this day, which we might be at by the time I'm done this. But as y'all checking in, you can shout yourselves out in the comments section. Then we'll get into it. Bees Black Honey, what's going on with the first comment? Congrats to you. As y'all checking in, go ahead, shout yourselves out. We're going to get started in about 30 to 60 seconds. I'll give it a little bit of time to populate, but my experience here with these lives is people, once I start talking, that's when the people start coming in. So we're not going to take too long. I start talking and it's quiet, but then people start coming in once I get going. So that's what we're going to operate by moving forward. So I'll introduce myself in a second. First of all, letting everybody know my live event, Work on Your Game live virtual event, which means no matter where you are, you can actually attend this event. Doesn't even matter where you are right now. As long as you have access to the internet, which you do, then you can actually attend the event from wherever you are right now. All you got to do is get a ticket. You have to get a ticket at that link right there, workonyourgame.live. And the event is Thursday and Friday. Today's Wednesday, so tomorrow and the day after, that is this event. And Bees Black Honey said, get your notepad, Jim's about to fall. All right, well, hopefully I deliver some. Actually, I know I will. So let me introduce myself. For those of you who are new to me, even those of you who are not, my name is Dre Baldwin. I'm a former 9-year pro athlete. I'm the author of 31 publications that some of you may call books, including my book, Work on Your Game, The Overseas Basketball Blueprint, Third Day, The Mirror of Motivation, in addition to many others. I created this whole framework, philosophy, and brand that is called Work on Your Game. It's all about taking the mental tools and the skills and the attributes and the strategies and the abilities that allow an athlete, that move an athlete to become a professional, get to the top 1% in their game. And then I took those same tools when I stopped playing sports. Actually, I learned this while I was playing sports, that I could take these same tools and I could teach them to people who don't play sports and let them use them at work and in everyday life. So that's what I do now. That is my full-time business. Again, it is called Work on Your Game. It's the name of the brand. It's also the name of the business, the name of my framework and system as well. What's going on are BNU. And what we're going to talk about here today, we're going to talk about selling equation. As a matter of fact, it says selling equation as if there's only one. There's actually 4 different selling equations that I'm going to talk about here today. And you're going to understand what each one of these equations are. There's one that you probably want to use the most, the ideal selling equation, but I'm going to go through all the selling equations, all 4 of them, because there are times when you're operating from one of the other 3. You probably don't want to stay in one of the other 3, but you got to understand. I mean, it's like you got to understand where you're at to get to where you're going, right? So it's like if you call the airport, the airline, you call Delta Airlines or American Airlines, and you say, hey, put me on the next flight to Chicago. The next question the person on the phone is going to ask is, okay, what airport are you flying from? Where are you coming from? As if you don't know where you're at, you can't get to where you're going. So if I call the airport, I'm in Miami. If I say, give me a ticket to the next flight to Chicago that you got, and they say, where are you at right now? And I lie, and I say, hey, I'm in Tampa, or I say I'm in Dallas, or I say I'm in LA, they'll sell me the ticket. I'll have a ticket from LA to Chicago, but I'm not in LA, so I'm going to miss the flight. Now my money's gone. So you got to make sure you're clear on where you're at so you can get to where you're going. So there is an ideal selling equation. That's going to be the last one that I share. But the first 3, you need to understand these so that you understand. It might help you, might give you some insight as to where you're at right now and how you ended up in that spot. So we're going to get clear on the combinations that lead to success when it comes to selling. And understand when I say selling here, this doesn't necessarily what's going on young Portia. And by the way, I'll answer all questions and comments at the end. So if I say anything during this live and you got a question or comment about it, just put it in the comments. I'll address them all at the end. But we got to get clear on how sales success happens and what might be impeding your success. And when I say selling, I'm not always necessarily talking about selling for money. Because yes, you can sell things for money, like a course or a program or a speaking gig or a book or whatever it is that you're offering. In my live event that's starting tomorrow is for anyone who is an entrepreneur and you're selling stuff, especially if you're selling anything that comes out of your brain. We call that intellectual property, or you want to be an expert in some area. So yes, is that kind of selling when you give them something, they give you money, but also selling of ideas. Because look, you can't sell someone something for money until you sell them on the concept. Because if someone doesn't even understand the concept of what you're offering, then they can't buy it, right? People had to agree with the concept before they even understand they need to buy one. So when smartphones first came out, nobody knew what a smartphone was because it didn't exist before. So first of all, the people at Apple, because they're the ones who pioneered it, first they had to sell you on the concept that you actually need a smartphone. Then once they sold you on the concept of the smartphone, the idea, then they could sell you the actual product. It's the same thing with something like, for those of you who are old enough, bottled water. Y'all remember back in the, let's say the 80s and the 90s, for the most part, if you wanted some water to drink, what'd you do? You went to the kitchen sink and you turned on the faucet and you got the water pour into the glass and you drink it. That's pretty much how we did it. Then all of a sudden, this new concept came along. We were sold on this concept that drinking water out of the faucet was somehow harmful to you and bad for you and it was going to kill you. So you couldn't do that anymore. So now you either got to go buy a water filter or you got to go buy bottled water. So now people go pay money for water in a plastic bottle, even though it's probably the same stuff that comes out of the sink. That's a different conversation for a different day. But anyway, let's talk about the selling equation and how this works and why it works a certain way, why it might not be working another way. So here's the first equation. The first three equations are equations that you probably don't want, but you might have, so you need to understand them. First one is when you have a combination. We're going to talk on the combination of your offer and how you're talking about it. In other words, the offering and the marketing. Those are the two pieces, and we're going to do the different equations, and we're going to figure out where you're at. The first one is the one you probably least want. This is where your offer, meaning the thing that you're selling, sucks. So you have a crappy offer, meaning your product, your book, your course, your hot dog stand, whatever, your iPad, whatever it is that you're selling, your sneakers, your t-shirts, whatever it is you're selling is garbage. And the marketing of the product, meaning the way that you talk about it and the way that you promote it and get the word out about it, is also garbage. So you have a crappy offer and you have crappy marketing. This leads to failure. There is no other possible outcome when you have a crappy product and you are terrible at marketing and selling and promoting it. You don't want to be here. All right, this is where you get crickets. You know what I mean when I say crickets? Crickets is, you don't hear a lot of crickets where I live now because this is like a concrete jungle. But any of you who live somewhere where there's like grass and trees and people have lawns outside of their houses, that's those bugs that you hear at night. Those are crickets. Crickets is what you hear when it's complete silence. There is nothing going on. Nobody's saying anything. All right, you don't want cricket. You want crickets when you go to sleep at night. I like when it's quiet when I go to sleep. I don't like to be disturbed. I don't want my neighbors having parties and stuff like that. Yes, so crickets is good when you're going to sleep. But if you're trying to sell things and generate business, crickets is the exact opposite of what you want. You don't want crickets when you're trying to sell. So crickets is what happens when your product sucks and your marketing sucks. So any of you who's ever put out a product or service and you got crickets, that's because you had this combination. This is a bad combination. And listen, I've had this happen before. I put stuff out and I didn't really get a response. I'm like, man, maybe the product sucked. Maybe my marketing sucked. Maybe it's a combination of both of them sucking. The good news about this is as soon as you recognize the issue, you can do something about it. So if I put out a product and I get crickets, I can immediately delete that and say, okay, what did I do wrong here? And let me approach this again. Let me do something different. Good thing about the internet, as opposed to before the internet, is that you can try over and over and over again. You can put out a product every day if you want to, as long as you got the energy and the wherewithal to keep trying to market stuff. So the good news about this is you can get a response from the marketplace very quickly, and the marketplace will tell you loud and clear if it's interested or not interested in what you're offering. So an example of this, if you want to put this to a real life, let's say somebody's a boxer and their punching power is not good and they're not good at dodging punches. So you can't hurt anybody with your punches and you're not good at blocking punches that other people throw. That boxer's probably not going to last too long in a professional boxing career because they can't hurt anybody and they're going to get knocked out over and over again. They're not in a good spot. So we don't need to take too much time on this one. So crap offer, crap marketing, Crickets, nothing. Let's move on to point number 2. We are talking the selling equation. There's actually multiple equations. We're going to figure out where you're at. Now, these next 2 is where a lot of people reside when it comes to their products and services. And we're going to be talking about this a lot at my event that starts tomorrow. This is when you have a combination of a crappy offering, but your marketing is actually pretty good. So you're good at selling it and getting the attention to what you're selling, but your product, i.e. the thing that you're selling, is not that good. Your marketing is better than your product. Now, let me tell you why this is a problem. Because what happens when your marketing is better than your product is you end up with a whole bunch of disappointed and sometimes even angry customers. Because the people are like, man, you sold me on this idea that this thing was going to be so great, but then I went and got it and it didn't live up to the hype. Any of you ever bought something that just didn't live up to the hype? Any of you ever go to a movie and the movie was real hyped up and it had these famous actors and actresses in it, and you bought a ticket and then you went to the movie and you're watching it and you're like, this movie sucks. This movie had me all excited about what it was going to be. Y'all remember a couple years ago when they had the Fire Festival and Ja Rule was involved, and I forget that guy's name who was involved, the white guy, and they got all those influencers to talk about the Fire Festival, and all these people flew to, where was that event at? Was it Puerto Rico? It was somewhere in the Caribbean, and somebody said Space Jam too. I didn't see that movie, so I'm not a big movie guy. But the Fire Festival, everybody flew to wherever the Fire Festival was supposed to be, and then the whole thing was a complete bust, and they had people staying in tents, and they couldn't get food, and everybody had to go back home, and they did a whole... I watched the documentary. It was on, I think it was on Netflix, about the Fire Festival. All right, that's what happens when you have a terrible product but great marketing. Because great marketing draws attention. You get eyeballs and you get people excited about something, and then they all show up and they want the thing that you're offering. But if your product does not live up to the billing of your marketing, what happens is you'll make a whole bunch of sales, at least initially, but all the people who bought from you are going to be mad at you. I don't think you want this in the long run. In the short term, this is a good idea because you can get an influx of cash and make a whole bunch of money. The problem is everybody you made money from, first of all, is going to be mad at you. And many of them are going to let you know about it, because people, when they're mad, they will communicate with you more than when they're satisfied. A disappointed customer will talk about their disappointment more than a satisfied customer will talk about their satisfaction. And all of you are customers of something. You all know about this. When you go to the store and you have a satisfactory experience, you don't say anything. But if you go there and the customer service person is rude to you, or one of the employees doesn't do their job, you will make sure everybody knows about it, right? This is just how human beings are wired. So you don't want a whole bunch of disappointed customers, because they will let the whole world know how you screwed them over, and they're going to make sure that they tell... I think the studies say that every disappointed customer tells 10 of their friends about their disappointment, because, as they say, misery loves company. People love to share when they're disappointed in somebody or in something, or they have a bad experience. They'll tell the whole world how terrible you are. So one disappointed customer is actually 10, because they're going to tell all of their friends about you and make sure none of them buy from you either. And the challenge with having disappointed customers, because you have a crappy product and great marketing, is now you got to go get brand new customers all over again. Any of you who's been in sales for any amount of time understands that what we call the second sale is the sale that you're really after. It's not the first sale, it's the second sale. In other words, the same person, but you want to get them to buy from you again. And the only way somebody buys from you a second time is they have to have enjoyed their experience the first time. So if they hate what happened the first time, guess what? There won't be a second time. They're not going to buy from you again. It's like if you go on a date and somebody really hates the date, they don't like the conversation, they felt like you were kind of, you took them to a cheap restaurant, your breath didn't smell good, they didn't like that, they didn't like the way that you showed up, or ain't gonna be on a second date. So now you got to keep going on all these first dates trying to meet a person who's willing to go on a second date with you. It's the same thing in sales. So the first date matters. You got to make sure you do well on the first one. When the first situation goes well, then you open yourself up to the possibility of the second situation. So what happens for a lot of people is you're good at marketing and drawing the attention, but you're not good at delivering on the attention. You must deliver at the same level at which you market, sell, and promote. If you are not doing that, this might be why you get a whole bunch of one-off exchanges. Somebody comes and they leave, and now you got to do it over and over and over again. The hardest thing to do in business is to generate a new customer. The easiest thing to do in business is to make a second sale to a current customer, because you don't have to market to a person who already knows about you. They're already in your world. All you got to do is let them know that you have it. But again, if they didn't like the first one, They don't care about the second one. They won't be around to listen to it. So that's the second one. Third equation. We're talking the selling equations here today. Third equation is when your offering is good, but your marketing sucks. This is actually what happens with most people. Many of the entrepreneurs that I talk to, who at least they feel like their product is good, at least they believe that it's good. The problem is they are getting crickets, like I talked about in point number one. It's not because there's anything wrong with their product. It's because they are terrible at marketing. They are terrible at selling. They are terrible at promotion. They are terrible at drawing attention. They are terrible at identifying who their target customer is. And they're terrible at actually communicating to that target customer. Therefore, even though their product is actually pretty good, they can't get the message across to the right type of people. Therefore, they can't make any sales. This is where most entrepreneurs reside for the entirety of their careers. And the reason is not necessarily because they need to read a whole bunch of books on marketing or they need to hire a salesperson or something like that. The main reason why this happens, and I talked about this a lot yesterday, or at least I alluded to it from a different direction yesterday, is that many entrepreneurs simply ask themselves the wrong questions. And then they answer those wrong questions. So then they feel like they got all the answers, but the problem is they're answering the wrong question. So this is what happens with people. They feel like they got all the information that they need. The problem is you have the wrong information. Yeah, you got information, but it's the wrong information. So then you go apply it. It doesn't work. And then you're wondering what the problem is. The problem is you started from the wrong spot. You started looking in this direction when you should have been looking in that direction. That's why everything that you did, even though you did it right, isn't working. This is what happens with many entrepreneurs. You're nothing wrong with your product, your service, your offering, whatever it is that you're selling. Everyone here, you're offering something. Even if you're trying to get a job, you're selling yourself. It's that you need to identify who exactly are you selling to, how are you selling to them, what do you want to help them do, and you need to get specific on these things. And many entrepreneurs never do this work. We're going to talk about this at Work on Your Game Live over the next 2 days, Thursday and Friday. Many entrepreneurs never do this work because they simply do not know where to begin, or the questions never occurred to them in the first place. So I just told you, but you need to understand the process. And that's what we're going to talk about, again, at Work on Your Game Live the next 2 days. So this leads to frustration. This is the result that comes from having a good offer, good product or service, but you don't know how to market, you don't know how to sell it, you don't know how to promote it. This is what happens. It leads to frustration. You know your stuff is good, but it's like people are not seeing it. It's like they're just not understanding it. They're not getting it. So because they can't see it, you feel like you're like a secret star, right? People don't know about you, but you're actually good. The problem with being a secret star is that you can't get paid, you can't draw attention, you can't help anybody with your offering, and as the saying goes, you die with your music in you. You still have all this value within you, but you couldn't use it to impact anybody else because you couldn't even get their attention. You couldn't even get your stuff out to the people who need to know about it. So this is the biggest area. The most populated area is this point number 3 here. Great offer, great product or service, or at least an adequate offer, product or service, but you're terrible at marketing, you're terrible at asking the right questions. This is why you're stuck. So anybody who feels stuck, usually you're at point number 3. So here's point number 4, just so you know what it looks like. And I'll give you some examples. And we're talking the selling equation here today, is when you have a great offer, or your product, your service, whatever it is, and your marketing is on point. When you have both at the same time and they converge, this is where you get a hit. This is where you get things to pop off. This is when things really start working. I talked about that. There's a chapter in my book on selling yourself, and this book here, Work on Your Game, where I talked about this, that a hit record cannot be stopped. That's just a metaphor, but in this book I talk about this. So you haven't read this book, you should go get it at workonyourgamebook.com, where I talk about what happens when you have a hit. This is when you have a combination of the right thing and you're giving it to the right people. And the right people is not everybody. Any of you entrepreneurs out there, if I was to ask you, who is your product or your service or your offering for? Who are you selling this to? Whatever you make, who do you want to sell it to? If your answer is any version of everybody, that's the wrong answer. I want to let that one sink in. If I ask you, who are you selling this to? Who is this for? Who's the ideal person for what you're offering? And your answer includes anywhere in it the word everybody. That is the wrong answer. Your offer is not for everybody. Now, you might think everybody could everybody in the world technically benefit from this book? The answer is absolutely yes. Technically, everybody could benefit, but I can't sell to everybody because there's too wide of a variance. People are too different. I can't target everybody at the same time. That is impossible. So I got to decide, who do I actually want to target with this, give everything I want to give to them, and they will spread the word to the other people. But it's not my job to give it to the whole world all at the exact same time. So let me tell you what happens when you get to this fourth equation, where you have the great offer and you have a great marketing at the exact same time. This is when you get Nike. Nike is great products, great offer. Apple, great products, great offer. Amazon, Google. These are companies who have their product. They know exactly what they want to sell, and they know exactly who they want to sell it to. This is when you get a hit. And those companies are all famous companies that everybody knows what they do. They're good at what they do, and they're really, really good at getting the word out about what they do. A couple weeks ago, I was doing a live, and I was telling you how a company like Apple, as big as they are, Google, Nike, Amazon, all of these companies, as big as they are, they still spend hundreds of thousands of dollars a day, maybe even millions of dollars a day on marketing, on advertising, on billboards, on commercials, on online ads. Even though they're bigger than most every company out there, they still spend a whole bunch of money on marketing. And the point is, just because you're out there, you've made sales, doesn't mean your job is done. Marketing is an ongoing thing because your consumers, people you want to sell to, they're being inundated with messages every single day. And as big as those companies are, they got a bunch of competitors who are trying to take away their market share and take their customers away from them. So marketing is an ongoing job. It's not something you do one time. It's not like you make an ad, you put it on Facebook, and you're good for life. That's not the way that it works. Trust me, that's not the way that it works. I wish that was the way that it works. It ain't the way it works. I actually just turned the ad off on Facebook because I wasn't getting the kind of ROI that I wanted. But this is an ongoing thing. It never ends. You are always marketing. Marketing never ends. Right now, I'm marketing. Marketing is not necessarily spending money. Marketing is getting the word out and building the relationship between you and the people who you want to serve, whoever they happen to be. This is an ongoing thing. It's not a one-time job. It's not something you did and it popped off and then you're good. I did somebody can't say I did my marketing last week. There's no such thing. It's always happening. So when you have a good offer of what you're putting out and you are marketing in a strong, consistent way, that's when you get the hit. If you want to hit, you must have this combination of both. Tomorrow at Working Your Game Live, day one, we're going to be talking about mindset and strategy. We're going to be talking about the mindset, the underlying mindsets and principles that govern how to get to this level 4 that I'm talking about right here. And then on day 2, application and execution, we're going to be working on how do you actually put this to use for your specific business. Good thing is with my event, this is going to be intimate enough that I can speak specifically for each person who is present, the people who are not physically, but who can be there during the live event. As I know some people won't be able to make it, but they have a ticket, so they'll be watching the replays. But those of you who will be live, any of you who's watching this right now, you will be able to get personalized attention. And we got some things that you're going to be working on. I'm going to be giving you some templates and formats and all that stuff for you to actually work on so that you know that I know that you know exactly what you're going to be doing moving forward even after the event is over. So with all that said, let me recap these 4 points. If someone has a question, go ahead and post it in the comment section. I'm going to recap my points, then I'm going to tell you again about my event, and then I'll take questions if there are any. So the selling equation, 4 equations. Number 1 is when you have a crappy offer, crappy marketing, this equals crickets. You get nothingness, nothing happens, no response, no sales. You don't want to be here. Number 2 is when you have a crappy offering, but you have great marketing. This leads to angry customers, only one-time sales. You don't get to the second sale. You always got to bring new people into your world. The hardest thing to do in business is get a new customer. The easiest thing to do is to make a second sale to a current customer. But if you don't do well in your first sale, then those current customers will leave, and you always have to bring in new customers. That costs you a lot of money. You will probably eventually go out of business. Think about a company like Nike, Apple, Google, Amazon. How many different times in your life have you bought from these companies over and over and over and over again? That's where they make their money. Not on the first sale, but on the second, third, and the 30th sales. Because they keep you in. Because they did a great job the first time, you will stick around and make it to the second time. Third equation is when you have a great offering, but you have crappy marketing. This leads to frustration. This is where most entrepreneurs exist, where they think their product is good enough, and maybe it is. Problem is they're not good at marketing because you are asking yourself the wrong questions. Not that you don't know how to put it together an ad for Google or Facebook. It's just that you're asking yourself the wrong questions, which is leading to the wrong outcomes. Inaccurate formulas is what we're talking about here. And number 4 is when you have a great offering and a great marketing. This is when you get the hit. This is Apple. This is Nike. This is Amazon. They know exactly who they're serving. They know exactly how to serve them, and they have the exact product that those people want. This is why you got Amazon Prime, and you pay, how much is Amazon Prime? They just raised the price, $139 a year or something like that. How many people pay that? Do you know how much money Amazon Prime makes? Amazon makes off of Amazon Prime every year. I wrote an article about this a few weeks ago. I forget the number, but it's a lot. It's in the millions of dollars. How much money Amazon makes just off Amazon Prime memberships one time every year. Mine renewed in like January. So then they sent out the letter that they raised the price. So I think I had the old price. Mine was $119, but then next year is going to be $139. They make a lot of money off that. And the only reason people pay for that is because they enjoyed the first transaction. So that's the way that it works. All that said, if somebody got a question, go ahead and post it in the comment section, and I will address it, and then we will wrap this up. I got some materials that I need to put together for a call that I'm doing later on today, and then I'll tell you about working on your game live, and that'll be that. Young Portia, you're reading the Super U. Shout out to everybody who read the Super U or is going to. That's part of the Bulletproof Bundle. You can get that at mirrorofmotivation.com. Noble Villains, what's going on? How are you? Arvin says, how do you know if the product is trash or good if no customers are willing to even give it a try? Is knowing who you're actually serving. When you know who you're serving, you will know that you're addressing their needs. That's how you know if your product is good. And there are ways that you can allow people to test out your product without even making a sale to them. That I will be talking about at Work on Your Game Live. It's a good question. I'll be covering that tomorrow. Bees Black Honey said, that's where you want to be. That's what's up. Everyone who needs it, yes. My frustration led me to thinking that I just want to sell to anyone that will buy initially. And there's nothing wrong with having that idea to start off. The problem is you have to eventually mature past that, and hopefully you mature past that quickly, because if you sell to anyone who will buy, many of those people might only be one-off buyers. And the thing is, now you got to make another sale. And now you're back at zero. Right? As soon as you made that sale, all right, that sale's done, now you're back at zero again. You want people who will stay, and then they'll buy the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. That's really the sustainable part of the business. Again, look at a company like Amazon. How many times have you made a purchase on Amazon? And every time you make a purchase, Amazon gets a cut. Right? How many purchases have you made from Apple? I got a product I just picked up from the Apple store yesterday right here. How many purchases? I got Apple, I got an iPad here, I got a phone. I'm using this phone right here. I got a MacBook Air, another MacBook Air. I got AirPods in my pocket. So I got a whole bunch of Apple products. I got like damn near $10,000 worth of Apple products just sitting here on this table. And that's Apple's business. It's not buying something from them once. It's buying from them over and over and over again. That's the business. And it also depends on what you're selling, Bees Black Honey. It also depends on what you're selling. If you're selling something that's disposable, like a hamburger, well, not everybody's going to buy from you forever. But things like what Apple does, like I bought this laptop in like 2016. And I said, I need to give me a new laptop. But it was 6 years ago. But Apple just stayed connected to me so they can make the next sale. That's the business. And then you multiply that by, who knows, 1 million people buying laptops from them. So that's the business right there. All right, so with all that said, my live event, Work on Your Game Live, will be tomorrow, Thursday, and Friday. So it won't be a live stream tomorrow, but I will be live, Work on Your Game Live, only for people who have a ticket at my live event. That is workonyourgame.live is where you get your ticket. I'll be sending an email out either later on this afternoon or tomorrow to everyone who has a ticket to the event so they can actually be at the event. And yeah, Bees Black Honey, I know what you're selling. I'm saying that as a general point for everybody. So the tickets for the event is workonyourgame.live. You get your ticket at that website. The link is also in my bio. Tonight at midnight is the deadline to get your ticket to the event. It's a 2-day event. It's a virtual event. Day 1, mindset and strategy. Day 2, application and execution. This is specifically for entrepreneurs, thought leaders, speakers, coaches, course creators, Anyone who wants to take your intellectual property and you want to sell it and make money from it, this event is for you. I got a lot of stuff planned for this event coming up in the next 2 days. If you want to get that foundation and the strategies for how you're going to be executing in your business, if I was you, I would get a ticket to this event. It's a 2-day event, and if you like what I do on these lives, imagine what I'm going to do in a live event that is going to be longer and more detailed, and I'm giving specific attention to the people who have tickets to the event. It's not just going to be out there for anybody. It's going to be specifically for the people. That is Work on Your Game Live next 2 days. Everything's going to be recorded, so if you can't be there tomorrow because you got to go to work or you got to pick your kid up from school or something happens, you got something going on Thursday or Friday, you'll get access to all the recordings at the end of each day. And again, that is workonyourgame.live. That's where you get your ticket. So if somebody else got a question, I'll wait and take a question or two if there is one. If not, then we will wrap this up. That's workonyourgame.live. For those who came in the middle of this or later this, we were talking about the selling equation. I'll be putting a recording of this one. It'll be on the IG Live tab on Instagram, and I always download the recordings and I put them up on YouTube too. So any of you like to watch the videos on YouTube, it'll be on YouTube. But we got a queue over there, so it'll probably be a week or two before this video actually comes out, but it will come out. This is evergreen material. The event is not evergreen, but the topic is evergreen. And by the way, I got a podcast called Work on Your Game. Y'all didn't know, workonyourgamepodcast.com is where you can access my podcast. It comes out every single day. Yes, every single day. So if you like what I talk about on these lives, you'll love my podcast. And oh yeah, that's my text number, 305-384-6894. I send out daily motivation every day for free. Bees Black Honey said, I've attended so many events. I hope this is the one. Me too. I feel the same way. I'm glad you're coming to this event. So shout out to people who attend events. So, all right, everybody. I don't see any other questions, so we're going to wrap this one up. Y'all have a good afternoon. You can hit me in a DM or send me a text. And if you have a question about the event, again, midnight, almost exactly 12 hours from now is the deadline to get your tickets. And that is that. Everybody have a good afternoon. Shout out to everybody getting my text too. So, y'all have a good afternoon. We out of here. Work on your game. Work on your game live.